Hello and welcome back to the Delve podcast. Today we are talking about an Instagram post on the topic, don't text your depressed friends. How are you feeling today? I'm Allie McGarel. I'm a staff therapist here at Delve Psychotherapy of Chicago.
And I'm Adam Fominaya. I'm the executive and clinical director at Delve Psychotherapy of Chicago.
Help us spread the word with this podcast. We're really relying on word of mouth. We're not trying for fame here. We don't plan to run any ads. We just want to add value and be helpful to as many people as possible. So please share this podcast. If you already shared it with one person, share it with another. It'd be really helpful.
Preferably if they live in like Uzbekistan or something like that. Like, let's really get the international viewership going.
We're trying to hit all the places. Here at Delve Psych, we offer individual, couples, group, and family therapy. So if you're interested in a free consultation call with one of our therapists, head on over to delvepsych.com. That's DELVEPSYCH.com. And check out our blog on Substack at delvepsych.substack.com.
I need to write some more bloggy stuff. So I've got ideas in my head. I just need to actually sit down and do it. And I've been feeling some motivation too. And haven't yet actually just sat down and done it. There's a ton of in our drafts. There's a ton that are like, oh, here's an idea. Oh, here's an idea. I need to finish the ideas.
Well, I'm honestly impressed with like how many different topics of content you've come up with already. Like, it's impressive. And I don't know, like, I feel like I would get writer's block doing all those blog posts. I'm good with like this format. I can talk and talk and talk, but like sometimes when I sit down to like write something formally out, I'm like,
yeah. Well, leave it to a white man to get hyperverbal and a little self-important.
At least you're self-aware, Adam, you know?
I will say there were a couple of things, because I've struggled with writing in the past. There were a couple of things that I think we did that really, really helped this whole process. One is that one of the team members is helping with the edits. And so I'm much more free to just stream of consciousness, get the bones of the idea down, and then have some help editing. So I think sometimes there's a value in something like that for people. Like if you were in a fiction writing circle, if you will, a fiction writing group, I feel like there's often a pressure in a context like that to like bring a polished product.
Yeah.
And so when I'm going to read this to all of these people, it's going to be a polished product. But how much more do we get done if we take to them an unpolished product that's even got grammatical errors in it or whatever else? Like, but we can just move the project forward and polish later, especially maybe getting help polishing later from others. Oh, I noticed this, or what do you think about that? I think that's really helped. The other thing is that I felt like I had created a lot of artificial barriers in that, like I had a certain kind of length expectation, or I would have an idea and I would start to think, okay, I need to sit and execute this entire idea right here, right now. But breaking things into chunks and letting each little article be very tiny, very short if it needs to be short, and just be like one idea with the follow-up idea coming later, that has helped so incredibly much. And I sat down to write one. I thought it was going to be one article. I've now planned it out as 6.
No, I think that's like smart and also more palatable for the readers too.
Right.
Not to have like this big idea and every single aspect about this big idea in one long article. So yeah, like having 3 parts, 4 parts, 6 parts for this next one. Like, no, I think that's really smart. And like people don't want to like sit and like read for 10 minutes. So just having like a blog post that they can read in like 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah. So and some of ours are even quicker than that. And ultimately I'm hoping to put some of these ideas together into a book format, but I like the idea that the book is essentially like take each of these things. Each one is like a part of a chapter of a book. And eventually, if you keep writing small little parts of chapters of books, you figure out what order they go in, you got a book.
There you go. Easy.
So,
wow, that could be exciting in the future, putting that all together into a book.
Yeah.
Who knows? Okay, so for today, sometimes we like to, go to social media, see what people are talking about, see what's like going viral and being shared. So this, to give credit, is from Matthias James Barker, LMHC. So this video, he starts the video saying, "Hey, don't text your depressed friends, how are you feeling today?" Um, they don't know what to say, they feel awful, and then there's like this guilt of like, I'm still feeling bad.
Same as yesterday.
And the day before. Um, yeah. Initial thoughts?
Yeah, it's been a while since I had watched this one, but I remember kind of reflecting that in general, I think we struggle witnessing another's suffering. And I think when we see suffering, especially in the contemporary West, if you will, uh, there's I sense such a drive to try to save this person from their suffering, to get them out of their suffering. And eventually you'll find people start getting annoyed with the person who is suffering. How is that helpful?
Right. Absolutely. And I wonder if it's almost like a, how are you feeling today? How are you feeling today? As if like, if they said, "Oh, I'm better," it's like, oh, like
Yes.
like a relief. Like they almost like they keep asking because they want to hear that the person's better. I don't know, maybe that's
Right.
not the intention. Maybe I'm putting things on people's intentions here, but like um I wonder if for some people that like checking in, it's like they almost are really hoping and wanting that other person to say, "You know what? I am doing better." So then that person can relax. Okay, I don't have to ask anymore. Okay, we're good. We're good. You
Yeah,
know.
absolutely. And I think that there are various relationships you may have with the person who is suffering. One of the ones, I think when you're kind of on the same level, you're not like a mentor, you're not a parent, you're not an older sibling to the person that's struggling. You're just a friend, or you're maybe a colleague or whatever it is. Uh, I think that the power dynamics and stature of the individuals has a lot to play with what your options even are.
Mm,
I think if you have some degree of kind of like authority with the person, then I think you have a few more options available to you. But likely, just saying "how are you feeling" / do this thing is probably not going to work. Yes.
yeah, that was the next thing he kind of got into, was like the suggestions. Well, have you tried doing this? Have you tried going for a walk? Have you tried? I can almost bet you most of the time that person has already thought about doing those
Yeah,
things.
people are dumb. They're not dumb. So quit giving them suggestions. Anytime I start noticing myself giving suggestions, and I'll do it even with clients. Like, even though I'm an experienced clinician who tends not to fall for this trap, every once in a while, maybe I'm tired, maybe I'm distracted, maybe I'm overwhelmed by the kind of suffering that they brought me, I'll fall into this trap. I try to notice when I'm in this trap, one, but two, sometimes the idea, well, let me say this. Rarely the idea is truly novel and they haven't thought of it. Rarely. So don't bank on that, and don't build your whole model around that. That should be a surprise when you find that. Um, Alternatively, it's probably that like they do have I'm thinking of this thing that seems like an obvious solution.
Mhm.
You have probably thought of this thing that seems like an obvious solution. And not only have you thought about it and maybe even tried it, but for some reason you've also discarded it as a choice. Your reasoning for why you've discarded this thing that I'm thinking is a good idea, your reasoning for getting rid of it is interesting. And that we could talk about. So a way that I might say this to somebody is like, I know that I've heard people say that like volunteering when they start feeling really stuck like this is really valuable to them. I'm sure you've thought of that. I'm just curious, like, where did you land on that? Where did you land on that as an idea?
Mm.
I'm not exactly suggesting it, and maybe they'll say, Well, I tried to volunteer, but it just didn't feel great. I started to feel beholden to the entity itself. Like, they've got a reason, right? And there's no value in you pushing back on their reason. It's their life. It's their mentality. There's no value in pushing back on their reasoning. But there is some value to understanding where their mentality is. So
Yeah.
if you want to bring something up, it's probably because my brain is stuck on it, not because you need to go do it.
I liked the way you framed that to them because it respects their intelligence. Like I'm sure you have already thought about this. I'm just wondering, yeah, where did you land on that? I wonder too if just like, yeah, they have this person who's really struggling with depression, like they know the things that they could be doing that could help them, but it's like they simply struggle just even getting out of bed in the morning. They simply struggle brushing their teeth. They struggle taking a shower. So now, like you suggesting, like, hey, why don't you go for a run? Now they feel like shame on top of that because how are they going to tell you, well, yeah, I know that that would be helpful for me. Man, I have trouble even just like getting my feet out of bed.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're sort of compounding the shame. I've already internalized that shame, and now you've given me external validation of that shame. So great. Thanks. You're
Right.
not going to fix this for somebody. You're not going to hell, I'm the therapist in many of these cases, and I can't fix it for them. There's tons of times when I work with a client for months and months and months, and the spot that they are stuck at is the spot they're gonna stay stuck at. I can try some stuff, and motivational interviewing is super, super effective.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, you'll get what I call a yeah butter client, where no matter what you say, the response is yeah, but, yeah, but, yeah, but. And if you have a client like that, and hell, I've been that client before, probably. If you have a client like that, you're not just going to convince them necessarily.
Yeah.
And if you can take the pressure off of them to change and take the pressure off of you to fix, well, now where are we at?
Yeah. And that's when Matthias suggests something really interesting. Um, instead of, well, here's another point that I think is important too. And you may have the best of intentions in caring for your friend, right? And saying something like, "Hey, what do you need right now? How can I help?" But that also puts more responsibility on that person who's really struggling to make another decision about
Mm,
what they need, and how they need it from you and all those things. Like I've heard about this in the context of grief, someone who just like lost a parent. Instead of going to that person and being like, "Hey, what do you need? How can I help?" They're already trying to make so many million decisions about, funeral and logistics of all of those different things. Take that decision off of them and be like, "Hey, I'm thinking I'm gonna make dinner for you Thursday night and just drop it off at your front door.
you have the
Sound
right
good?"
to say no.
You can sound yeah, the person can say no. Um, but I think it takes the guesswork and like the extra decision off that person who's already struggling, um, to figure out and tell you what they would want. So
Yeah.
this person is like, uh, Matthias. He says, yeah, just be like, "Hey, you know what? What does he say? Hey, can I just come over and make s'mores? It's weird to make s'mores by myself, and I think it'd be kind of fun. And you have that fireplace. So yeah, what about how I just come over and make some s'mores, and we can just like chat and then hang out, maybe watch a movie." Again, like you said, Adam, you can say no. You can say I'm not up for that. Um, but I like that friend just sort of took all the guesswork and mental energy from the person who's already struggling. And he talks about how just like the presence of you and the presence of your love and support without the pressure of the person who's feeling depressed having to explain how they feel without them needing to change, and without the friend needing to fix, just being together in that way can be really healing in and of itself.
Togetherness is the salve, right? And like, we are humans. Humans love other people, generally speaking, and being in safe togetherness with another person is the fix in so many cases. I will say that there's a difference between, so there's two kinds of support, essentially. We break it down into instrumental and emotional support.
Yeah.
Many Americans love the idea of instrumental support. We love to do something to fix the problem. So when we're talking like, oh, well, let me run an errand for you, let me make you dinner, let me come over, let me do something for you, that's instrumental support. Different than emotional support. And there are ways to be emotionally supportive in these moments too. Perhaps we'll do a podcast on some of those options at some point. / we've a little bit talked about them. But another thing that I want to kind of get into is the idea that I think we tend to have a very narrow vision about how to help another person. They have a problem, so I need to come up with a solution to the problem, is like a very A to A kind of solve, which again, people are more complex than that. And a thing that I try over and over and over again to train my clients on is, if you're reaching out to your friends for support when you're stressed about something, that doesn't have to be a topical reaching out. You just went through a breakup. You don't have to call your friends and talk about the breakup. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Maybe you talk about it some and do some other things too. But like, we're most likely to feel whole, complete, safe, and driven if we have a connection with our internal identity, our felt sense of who I am. And friends, we've talked about the co-created self on here before. Friends are a great way to get reconnected with self. So when you are around your friends, being friends with your friends, you get to participate as yourself in a way that is connected to your identity and connected to your group. So you could go with your friends. Let's say you all get together and paint. You're all artists. You get together and you paint, and that's what you do. You could go paint, and you could not talk about the breakup. You could not talk about the troubles in your life. You could not paint about the breakup. You could, paint and shoot the shit about anything else. I bet you walk out feeling better about the breakup. It doesn't have to be topically linked. And then various people have different ways of working as well. I have a friend who was going through a breakup one time, and we had sat and talked about it. We had gotten beers and, cried the sorrows. We did all that stuff. And then there was another day, and this kind of exchange happened. It's like a Wednesday or something like that. He wasn't working. I was in grad school. And so it's a random Wednesday, and he still feels like shit. I just said, well, I have to build a bookshelf. You want to come build a bookshelf with me? We didn't talk about the breakup. We didn't talk about much of anything. He threw on some music and built a bookshelf. And he talks about this a decade later as one of the greatest like forms of care that anybody had ever offered him.
Just being with your people and feeling like yourself again, I feel like can be just so healing, right? Because like maybe like this person who's feeling really depressed and hasn't really left their house, hasn't really had much contact with people, hasn't really gotten out of bed. Maybe it takes a good amount out of them even to just go from the bed to the couch to hang out with the friend that comes over. But I feel like even them just being on the couch with their friend, making s'mores, watching a movie, it reminds them and gives them some semblance of like how they felt before things were really hard. And I think that can be really healing and give them some hope of, what's possible for them moving forward. Like, okay, maybe this state that I'm in right now won't be forever. I can see that like, hey, I really felt like a little glimmer of how things were before and how I felt before,
Yeah, absolutely. And then don't get mad at them when the next day they're back to where they were. It's okay.
And I guess that's one question I have, like the friend who has a friend who's really in the weeds and maybe is really struggling with depression. And, you know, they want to be there for them. They want to support them. I don't know. I wonder if you have any thoughts for the friend who feels maybe a little exhausted from, and maybe that is just the friend wanting to like pull this friend out of the depression. But I could see how it could be a lot on the friend, seeing their friend suffering so deeply for maybe months on end and feeling helpless and feeling like, man, I want my old friend back. But I also don't want to abandon my friend. But it's really hard for me to be around my friend maybe when they're feeling this low. I don't know. I wonder if you have any thoughts about that.
Yeah, one of the Buddhist principles is the idea that all healing of the world is healing of thyself. And in any moment, you must take care of yourself, but that's not in a solipsistic, individualistic kind of way. If caring for the people around you is important to you, then part of the way of taking care of yourself is taking care of other people. But that has to be in balance with thy whole self. And so I would offer two bits of guidance. One is do for them what you mean to do for them, as in like you choose very intentionally what effort you're going to give. And if that effort involves some degree of suffering for you, so be it, because you picked it.
Okay.
Additionally, and you have to remember this layer of it, but also do what you can. If you start extending yourself beyond what you can, that's going to show up somewhere else in your world that isn't balance, and it's going to affect both your care for them and for yourself.
Yeah, so be intentional and be aware of how it's affecting you. Yeah, I like that. I wonder too, what else did he say? This may be in too simplistic of terms, but I'm curious because Matthias says this in the video. Depression is actually just loneliness with loss.
Well, I'm fine with most definitions for depression because I don't think it's a thing. I don't think
Oh man.
we've talked about this. We've talked about this before, but like I've got some issues with this framing of depression, and I ask people to kind of think in two headspaces. I think in the contemporary psychological headspace, we've invented this construct that we call depression that we act like we all agree on, even though there's quite a lot of disagreement about it. And if I remember right, this is a professional therapist, right?
Yes, LMHC.
Yeah. I think that's like a licensed
mental health
clinician,
counselor.
counselor. Yeah. I'm not sure what state that is, but
I don't know. Yeah, not our
so
state.
this is another professional who has articulated a definition for depression. I could point to other literature written by Beck and blah 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 and Husitz from whatever year and say, well, that's not the definition of depression. But he's just as entitled to create his own definition for depression as those other people were. And we generate like scientifically, the way that you're supposed to do it is generate something of a consensus on the definition and then carry forward from there. That was the idea behind the DSM 4, 5, etc. Well, all the DSMs, I suppose.
Yeah.
But you know, there's this constant challenge in a clinical setting that has a research kind of linkage to it, where we've got dissent essentially. So you have this standard definition and then some dissenters, or even if it's not dissenters, it's just like an alternative way of thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so in my mind, I think of this in I guess maybe three ways. One is, what is the standard kind of zeitgeist, if you will, the model that is followed in terms of professional standards? We're going to call that the DSM.
Yeah.
Then how do lay people talk about this? How does just a random person on the street talk about this? And I hate anytime a lay person on the street says, I'm feeling really depressed, and somebody says, well, actually, if you look at the DSM, it's like, come on. Allow people to have the freedom of expression to describe their own experiences in their own terms.
Yeah.
And then we've also got this other lens, which is that there's sort of this kind of professional reframe that I think professionals in the field very much should be allowed to try. I've got this for even Johan Hari has that book on lost connections. He's a journalist, but he articulates his understanding of what depression is.
Mm-hmm.
It seems plausible to me. Does it agree with the DSM-5? No, not quite. Does it agree with the clinical literature? No, not quite. I'm still not convinced he's wrong. And what we'll do is we'll end up engaging in ad hominem attacks on somebody who's got like that particular framing and say, well, he's not a professional therapist, therefore he can't possibly. Mm-hmm. Well, one, this Matthias is, so he's got the cred. And two, Johan's got a point. And so like we're discrediting him because of his credentials rather than listening to his argument. I don't like the way that most of these things are framed. So anyway, soapbox. I think Matthias is entitled to have that as a framing. And I bet you some people's depression is exactly that.
Yeah.
And why would we take that away from them?
So basically, to sum up what you're saying, these definitions of depression are made up by people who says that they have like the end all be all definition of depression, and depression can look many different ways, and many people's experiences of depression and the way that they describe it and define it are valid. So
yeah, I think that's it. I think that's the idea.
That's the idea. All right. Well, any last thoughts on this idea of don't text your depressed friends? How are you feeling today?
Yeah, I think it means a lot to people that you care. And if you can stop trying to fix, but keep trying to care, people feel that. Maybe not everybody, maybe not all the time, but people feel that.
I like that. Stop trying to fix, keep trying to care. Yeah. All right. New quote on the board. We're all fucking something up. Nobody's perfect. I gotta work it again and again. Hannah Montana.
I appreciate your ability to bring in references that I would never pull.
Such a millennial, Adam. Anyways,
yeah, I think that's the idea. And if ever you are admiring someone, remember that this absolutely must be true for them. You know, they have their own moments of depression, whatever that is. They have their own moments of feelings of futility and defeat, confusion, overwhelm, exhaustion, anxieties, if you will. Nobody knows what the fuck they're doing. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm trying some stuff.
Yeah, we're all just trying. Everyone's just trying their best.
I will say I came across Alain Dubouton recently, and I've been watching some of his content. One of the ideas that he brought forward that I thought was really interesting is very often if you see someone focused on a particular topic, very often that is the thing that they are centrally struggling with in their own life. So the person who is like the foremost expert on whatever thing in a self-helpy kind of world is probably the very thing that person struggles with. Meaning, very often you don't want to do as they do because they're still trying to solve the problem themselves. And all of the solves and fixes that they've come up with are their own efforts to fix themselves. So don't watch what they do. It's very much like do what I say, not what I do.
Yeah, one has to wonder what made that person so interested in that topic in the first place.
Papa.
I mean, we're all just like it. Yeah, I mean, in some ways, it's for self-serving reasons. Like I'm struggling with this very thing, so I'm gonna read all the books and do all the research and figure this out so I can help myself. And then maybe I make that my, specialization and help other people after that. But yeah.
Right. Well, and there's also that simultaneity of like being able to intellectualize the solve is very different than being able to actualize the solve. I can tell you what to do. I can talk about how to do it. I can tell you what the principles are. I can tell you how this could work on paper. But when I'm in it and I'm feeling it and I need
Yeah.
to execute all of the individual steps, wish me luck.
Yep. Yeah. Well, this has been a great episode, Adam. I hope everyone enjoyed it. We'll keep pulling from social media and see what people are talking about and what's on people's top of mind, and exploring it, giving our takes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're interested in a free consultation with one of our clinicians, head on over to delvepsych.com. That's DELVEPSYCH.com. And check out our Substack. Adam will be adding some more of those blog posts that are swirling in his head very soon.
Hopefully.
delvepsych.substack.com. And we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you, Ellie.
Thank you, Adam.